Turner Broadcasting System.
We'll talk with the mother of the late Heather O'Rourke about the death of the child actress.
We'll meet some Hollywood personalities who've overcome their disabilities and shine like stars.
REO Speedwagon hits the record bins again with a greatest hits album.
And we'll take a look back at some of your favorite TV game shows.
At the top of the showbiz headlines, some critics charge that American television networks are not doing a good enough job covering South Africa. Filling in this void, reports Charles Feldman, is a new program about South Africa that is independently produced and which uses the talents of many network producers who are working on the project anonymously.
South Africa Now is a half-hour show that, say its creators, is designed to fill in what they say is a critical gap in American TV coverage of South Africa.
This is the story of our time, the story of the century, the story of the majority of South African people, both black and white, who are struggling to be free. And to devote, if you will, a minute 30 of spot news in the United States is simply not sufficient.
ABC News producer Danny Schechter agrees. He's written extensively on the subject.
If something dramatic happens, it tends to get covered. But a lot of the stories are not dramatic. Children in detention, you don't see them. They're there. They're being tortured every day.
In this clip from South Africa Now, a child tells of alleged police torture in South Africa. While South Africa does have severe press restrictions, former CBS political director Richard Cohn contends the real problem is self-censorship.
I think that journalists in South Africa today have come down with a horrible case of timidity. I think that the press is obsessed with its view of itself as an endangered species. I think the press is backing away from any confrontation with the government. They think they're going to get thrown out. They're afraid they're going to have to leave. And consequently, I think they've almost forgotten why they're there in the first place.
Since the invention of photojournalism, photojournalists have risked their lives, and currently the American networks, ours included, are in harm's way in dozens of places across the world where shots are being fired in anger. So it is terribly unfair to say or to indicate or hint in any manner or form that it is from lack of courage that we are not in South Africa.
South Africa Now, which gets help from many network producers who prefer to remain anonymous, is expanding and is already available in over 100 American TV markets. Charles Feldman, CNN, New York.
In other showbiz news, as Poltergeist III opens around the country, the memory of Heather O'Rourke continues to make headlines. The mother of the star of the 3 Poltergeist movies has filed a wrongful death suit against the hospital and medical group that treated Heather.
They're back.
Heather O'Rourke sadly won't be back. 7 months after she finished filming Poltergeist III, the child star was struck with flu-like symptoms that became very severe. She was being treated for inflammation of the bowel, and as her condition deteriorated, her mother called an ambulance.
She said she loved me, and then she suffered cardiac arrest in the ambulance. And then they operated on her after they had her stable, and they told me she had a congenital blocked intestine, had died of septic shock. And the next day, that's when I got to thinking, well, this isn't what she had.
What they thought she had was bowel inflammation. What she actually had was an obstruction. And the difference is they were treating her medically with drugs, whereas in fact what they should have done almost a year before her death was to operate and remove this narrowed portion of the bowel. And that's a fairly routine procedure, and had that been done, I've been told that she would have been fine and led a normal life.
A spokesman for the Kaiser Foundation Hospital, one of the main defendants in the wrongful death suit, has said the diagnosis and treatment was correct. Bill?
With the death of Heather O'Rourke and several other stars in the Poltergeist film, supermarket tabloids immediately began running stories of the films being jinxed. Zelda Rubinstein is in Poltergeist III, playing her now familiar role of the clairvoyant. When we sat down to talk with her, we asked what she thought of the jinx stories.
I owe it to Heather to present her case as most honestly and lovingly as I can. I loved this child very much.
and I am still very grieved at her passing. Heather died because of an undetected congenital anatomical defect. Julian Beck died from cancer in his mature years. Will Sampson passed away after receiving a heart-lung transplant. It's my understanding he had an environmental disease. And Dominique Dunn died at the hands of an extremely ill-directed, passionate boyfriend. These are reasons. I do not call this a jinx. So I think that it's pretty much a courtesy to put to an end this superstitious crap.
There were also stories published that during filming, scripts would mysteriously vanish and objects would fly around the set.
No, I've never had any experiences like that.
Okay.
No, I think it's hype.
The objects we do see fly around can be credited to special effects people. And of course, some chills are courtesy of Zelda as Tangina. A character Zelda Rubinstein hopes to continue playing, even, sadly to say, without Heather O'Rourke.
I believe that there's room for more, and a lot will depend on the public demand.
Coming up on Showbiz Today, come on down to a look at some of your favorite TV game shows.
Tomorrow we'll talk with actor Roy Sharkey about the hit series Wise Guy.
And later this week, we'll chat with sexy Susan Sarandon about the film Bull Durham.
Showbiz Today brings you the latest entertainment news. Stay with us.
And now back to Showbiz Today on CNN.
In the latest Nielsen ratings, Dan Rather is back on top in evening news after 6 weeks with Peter Jennings in the lead. Here's what's on top in prime time. Cheers is on top in the latest Nielsen ratings. A Different World takes the #2 slot. The Cosby Show, airing while the sun is still shining this time of year, is down in 3rd place. Night Court is 4th. The CBS Sunday night movie, That Secret Sunday, rounds out the top 5. For the week, NBC leads with an 11.8 average rating. CBS was 2nd with a 10.9, and ABC 3rd with a 9.3. Add those figures up and you get 32, which means fewer than 1 in 3 TV households were watching the big 3 entertainment networks during an average primetime minute. Bill?
There is no more durable form of television than the game show. They were among the most popular programs in TV's early years, and some of the same games with minor alterations remain on the air today. Sandy Kenyon talked to the author of a new book on the subject.
The most famous 3 words in game show history also serve as the title of a new book about the genre.
Game shows are another world unto themselves. And they really don't change that much. You know, the game always remains the same.
Never was the old saying more true that everything old is new again.
They're recycled so many times because it's hard to come up with a new game and because more people are apt to tune in to a show that has a familiar title.
Let's make a deal! Queen for a day! Concentration, 5th annual Challenge of Champions.
Early game shows were based on familiar parlor games, and they still are today. Wheel of Fortune is nothing more than Hangman with props and a beautiful woman.
At this point, they've all been done. So, you know, they've got people in Hollywood who are scratching their heads out every day trying to devise some new twist on it.
The game is always the star here, and no one knows that better than veteran host Alex Trebek.
You do not sit at home and watch these shows in a passive manner. You actively participate. You sit on the edge of your seat and you want to get in there, and as soon as a clue is revealed, you shout out a response.
Inevitably, some who do well at home want to participate in person.
If you want to be on a game show, A, practice, watch the show every day, videotape the program, and study. And if you find that you can play the game well and can beat the contestant on TV or be just as good as that person, you're probably going to do pretty well in the contestant audition.
For those who do well, there remains a final pitfall, the Internal Revenue Service, because the value of the stuff you win is taxed just as if you took it home in cash. Sandy Kenyon, CNN, Hollywood.
What's in a name? Well, in the movie business, a name can sometimes make the difference between a hit and a flop. Dennis Michael looks at the art and science of movie titles.
Off Limits was shot under the title Saigon. The original name for Shakedown was Blue Jean Cop. Skip Tracer became The Squeeze. With millions of dollars at stake, tinkering with movie titles is common.
I think the key to naming, whether it be a product, whether it be a company, or whether it be a movie title, one of the keys is differentiation. It's the ability to create a name that gets you away from everybody else.
Some movies are violating that rule this year. Big has become a big word at the box office with Big, Big Business, Big Top Pee-wee. The Great Outdoors started its life as Big Country, and Big Business nearly arrived with a different name as well.
Things like Double Trouble and Funny Business and every other adjective in front of business that one could think that you might want to have a comedy with, and none of them sounded right or distinctive enough or interesting enough.
Red Heat is a title that's distinctive and interesting.
Great name. It's active. It sounds sensual. It's got a play on towards the movie, actually. I mean, red being communist and heat being police.
But after Red Heat and Dead Heat, the makers of Outer Heat decided it was too much of a hot thing and changed their film's name to Alienation. A title can get credit for a hit. Fatal Attraction was nearly released with the title Diversions.
I think we'll look back on Fatal Attraction many, many years to come and say, gosh, that was a great name. That's exactly what the movie's all about.
However, a new title can't save a movie that's doomed to failure. Blind Camel was retitled Ishtar and still lost a fortune. A rose by any other name would smell as sweet, but this summer, don't name your movie Big Heat. Dennis Michael, CNN, Hollywood.
Still to come on Showbiz Today, veteran rockers REO Speedwagon put out a greatest hits album.
Tomorrow, we'll talk with Arnold Schwarzenegger about the movie Red Heat with Jim Belushi.
And later this week, the Rascals are back in action.
There's more Showbiz Today still to come right after these words from our sponsors.
Wake up to what's been happening while you've been sleeping with CNN's Daybreak and Daywatch. Weekdays on CNN.
New on the music scene, REO Speedwagon offers an album of their greatest hits from the past 2 decades. But band members Kevin Cronin and Bruce Hall are not resting with the album's release. Both are banding together with a few friends in a local LA night spot. Sherry Sylvester has more.
The sound of REO Speedwagon is characterized by the ballads of Kevin Cronin, songs from the heart of personal pain and the experiences of life. Here with Me is their latest.
It's my fate to have you here with me.
But Cronin cares for more than the sound that has kept his Speedwagon in full gear for nearly 20 years. He also likes a little brass, a little soul, and the thrill of some back-to-basics jamming.
We've kind of, sadly learned that that the public doesn't really accept much experimentation from REO Speedwagon. They want to hear, power ballads, and they want to hear a certain thing. And, as a writer and as a performer, it's a little bit, gets to be a little bit of a burden.
Enter the Strolling Dudes, a group of musicians who, like Cronin, needed a break from fan demands. All have found success in large arenas, but find fun in small local clubs, where the pay is light, the play fulfilling.
Something that I've wanted to do for years, and I guess the fact that I just have found a little bit more freedom in my life in general now, it's like, yeah, I'm going to, so what? If anybody doesn't like it, I can't help it. This is what I need to do right now.
And when the crowd requests a little REO, Cronin gives them Keep On Loving You like they've never heard it before.
I'm not sure exactly how the rest of the guys in REO Speedwagon feel about my newfound freedom, but I think it probably creates a little bit of thinking, well, what's he going to do?
What he's going to do, he says, is go on the road with REO Speedwagon for a 3-month tour. After that, he's not sure. And the future of the Strolling Dudes is even less certain, since all its members make music full-time for separate bands.
Whether or not the band ever plays together again, the memory in our mind is always going to be a real good one. And I think it the feeling of the Strolling Dudes will always be in my heart, whether or not I'm playing with them or whether I am.
And while he's not sure whether his future holds more ballads or the brass of R&B, one thing is clear. Kevin Cronin plans to keep on making music as long as there's a song in his heart. Sherry Sylvester, CNN, Hollywood.
And now some music news from overseas. Well, any good Soviet can tell you who Lenin was, and a few can probably even hum one of his songs about revolution. Because the Lenin who's attracting a new generation of followers in the Soviet Union hailed from Liverpool, England, and his first name was John. Mark Easton reports.
When Valery Ambartsumian puts on his mod suit, he becomes Paul McCartney. George Harrison lookalike Zaza Sakamberidze is George Harrison. Beachy Gossipov prepares to be Ringo Starr. And the man behind this extraordinary version of the Fab Four, Valery Kasharov, assumes the role of his hero, John Lennon. The Beatles' Soviet style are called Blitz.
Young men from Liverpool. It's my childhood group, you know, and I love them when I was little and just right now too. I love them very much.
I want to play in motherland, in Beatles' motherland in Liverpool, and step my feet in the Cavern Club.
To Blitz, perestroika means a chance to build a shrine to their pop idols. It could potentially mean they fulfill their wish to see Liverpool.
Still to come on Showbiz Today, we'll meet some folks in the entertainment industry who have overcome their disabilities.
Tomorrow, a candid interview with Canadian rocker Corey Hart.
And later this week, we'll talk to music video mavens Godley and Cream.
Showbiz Today will return right after this.